Hi everybody, welcome to Dublin Tech Talks in association with Working Minutes. Glowfox here. Welcome to another episode. On this episode we are speaking with Anthony Kelly, who is Chief Customer Officer and co-founder of Glowfox. On this episode we talk to Anthony about go-to-market strategies, where the business has come from, where it's fundamentally the acquisition by ABC, and he gives some really good advice about growing your go-to-market teams and your customer success teams. We hope you enjoy. Anthony Kelly, co-founder, Chief Customer Officer at Glowfox. Welcome to Dublin Tech Talks.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So, do you want to give us a bit more information about Glowfox and what you've been doing over the last number of years?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Glowfox is a software as a service platform focused primarily in the fitness space. So, if you think of your local gym or your studio that you go to, whether it be a CrossFit or a yoga or a big gym, we provide the software that runs all of their operations effectively. So everything from top of funnel management, lead acquisition, into membership management, billing, all of the reports that are associated with that, as well as all of the ancillary services that they offer, like PT, class bookings, retail, and so on. So it's a full suite platform. We started in 2016. Actually with a small cohort of customers in Ireland who are our first group that we kind of use for product market fit. We now have around 5,000 customers globally, and we serve 4 of the 10 largest fitness franchises in the world.
Wow, great.
Yeah, it's been a massive success, and congratulations on that, by the way.
Thanks. Cheers.
Whereabouts did the idea come from, or what was the problem identified that you were trying to cover?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So there was a few things I think that lined up at the same time. So prior to Glowfox, we had a web and app development business. So we were building different technologies, websites, apps for different clients. With that business, you're always looking for the next thing that you're going to build, and we really wanted to sort of build something that we could build into a platform and turn into a SaaS product. We were all really interested in fitness. The 3 of us as co-founders. Connor, our CEO, is an ex-professional rugby player, so fitness has always been really close to his heart and mine as well. So we got the opportunity to build a product which was primarily around apps and booking in. So it was just really a front end custom app, and that went particularly well. So at that point in time, this was around, let me get the years right, 2013, 14. So you had this growth in boutique fitness, which was starting to take off. So you had like yoga studios, Pilates, which were starting to scale. And then you had big international brands like F45 Training, which were open in 500, 600, 700 locations. So we could see that, okay, this was the next phase in where fitness was going. People wanted a much more personal experience. They wanted a better bang for the buck, essentially, than paying, 30, turn up to a gym and not really getting much service. And obviously at that time, the market economics across the world were starting to recover as well. So we just had a look at the market, what was out there, and we didn't feel that anybody was solving the problem particularly well for boutiques, and generally around the level of customization and branding they wanted to bring to their products. So everybody wanted their gym to have their own app in the App Store, and they wanted their business first and foremost, as opposed to in some sort of aggregator where it was hidden behind a software platform. So that's what we kind of set out to solve for initially. And that really resonated with the market, that we were trying to put, their brands first and their business needs and objectives first as well. And then, secondly, then what happened around the same time was Stripe came along, and that really opened up the payment space for SMBs to start taking integrated payments straight away. So prior to that, if you were a gym, you had to wait for nearly 8 months and show, the banks all of the, all your memberships that you were taking in cash and that you were a legitimate business before they'd give you a merchant account. So the combination of those allowed us to get a startup business off the ground really in a couple of weeks, with payments, a full software stack, and a mobile app which doesn't sound that exciting probably now in 2022, but in 15, 16, like that's how quickly things moved. That was, that was transformative. Because at that time, post-recession, I think a lot of people said, I want to go and, start my own business, especially in the personal training and fitness space. It went from, I have to be a PT in a large gym to make money, to hang on, I'm really good at this. I can go into a warehouse, or I can go into any retail unit and start a business and look after, my own future in that way. So it was sort of all those events sort of kind of came together at the same time. Obviously, being an Irish company, we were never going to scale it just in Ireland. But because fitness is very homogenous, and you see a lot of similarities in different markets, the product resonated straight away in the UK and in the US and in Australia. So immediately we were able to sort of scale internationally from a base in Dublin, without having to have a lot of investment in operations on the ground in other countries.
Something must have happened in 2015.
I was just thinking that.
You're the third founder that has said in 2015. It's like, well, what happened in 2014?
Good year. And I think, Anthony, when you look at what you guys offered, that was different. So it was the other solutions were very one-dimensional. They were just executing a portion of that, whereas your solution kind of helped, personal trainers build a business around themselves and facilitate that. And did it also add that business value to larger customers as well? Were they quite manual in terms of how they'd run the business before that?
Yeah, so I think it depends on how you break up the sector, I think, a little bit. So if you look at the gym space, you've got these, what we sort of call that traditional big box model. They're not as common in Ireland because we don't have the population really to sustain them, but you're talking those big 10,000 square feet, monster gyms. A lot of those would have been on legacy systems, which would have been all really just effectively direct debit, billing platforms, and they were trying to build services around them. But what happened at the time that boutique took off, fitness franchising really started to take off as well. So all of a sudden you had these pretty big businesses, which, the way I look at it is that they're really a collection of SMBs under one franchise banner. So they started to want a lot of the same requirements that the SMB customers were getting, and they were looking at different platforms to move their larger businesses to. So we kind of stayed very focused on what was our ICP, which was in the boutique small gym studio space, but we kind of just moved up into how can we kind of attract the franchises. So we were able to solve a lot of the same problems that their operators have, or the franchisees at the ground level. But then the challenge for us was, can we build a layer on top that the franchisor needs to give them the sort of visibility into their network performance? Which franchisees are following the operating model, which ones aren't. How do we know which markets are doing well? I want to see the performance of the UK versus Australia and all that sort of stuff. So we invested quite heavily in a sort of reporting layer and building out our API so we could give them the visibility they needed. So and that kind of paid us, paid off ultimately, by being able to attract these, the higher or the larger customers from in the franchise space. But sort of the question we get a lot, is like, oh, would you not have moved into like salons, or would you not have moved into other verticals? And that's where I think we made a really good decision, because the product stayed very focused on fitness. We knew who our customers were. Although going into a salon and booking an appointment for nails seems like a very similar thing to booking into a class in a gym, they're light years apart in terms of the expectations, the cost, the ancillary pieces that you need around them. So I think for us, that was one of the best decisions that we made, where we had all these other businesses. Oh, we hate our existing, platform. Can you do something for us? And it's hard to, it's very hard to stay on that disciplined track. But I think that discipline did pay off for us ultimately, in terms of where we ended up today, really.
Yeah, it's similar to what we've heard again this morning. It's like, we know our product is pretty good and very good in that space, and we're not going to diversify away from what we're very good at and excel in that one space. And they've all done really well. Similar to WorkHuman, they didn't move away from employee engagement and wellness and got paid.
So there's, I mean, you have to evolve. So there's, core products around
Yeah.
recognition and reward. But there, it's as you said, Anthony, it's making sure you don't get too far away from that hedgehog piece, and you can extend and expand and go in a different direction, but you need to have those core principles at the heart, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what we've done is we're offering more services all the time within the fitness space and to our customers. So some examples, like this year we rolled out a product with Stripe, which is a capital product where we can give loans out to our customers, to help them to regenerate the businesses that they're in. So looking at ways that we can expand, we're about to roll out a fully integrated POS across the world, so that captures kind of more of the wallet within the same system. We built in sort of a royalty management and collection part of the platform for our franchisor customers. So there's always more that you can kind of go out within the existing vertical, and that's sort of what we're really focused on. And then we also expanded our ICP outside of boutiques into what we call a kind of a simple gym model, which is a gym that has primarily like membership based. It may have some ancillary services, and that's a sweet spot for us now. So we've kind of within fitness we've broadened out a little bit in terms of our ICP on the platform, and that's opened up a whole new market to us, across the globe, just outside of boutique as well.
Amazing. Before we go into go-to-market strategies and that way, just want to know, when did you and your other founders kind of have that aha moment, we have a product here? When was that kind of go, yes, we have something here? When was that in the journey?
I think it's probably been a few times. If I'm like, there was certain points along the way that we knew we were on the right track. I think that the initial feedback from that first cohort of customers that I mentioned, and I might get the dates wrong here because I'm not great on dates. So these years,
it's not an interview.
Exactly. Once you go back a couple of years, it gets a little bit hazy. So we think that initial launch, sort of 2016, 2015 of that first cohort. So when we got the feedback from them, and then quickly being able to kind of get to 100 customers, that was a real milestone for us, and just how the needs were very similar and we were solving similar problems. I think the next one then, along the way was being able to kind of secure that first enterprise or franchise contract that we got, that validated what we were doing at the operator level, which is, we really focused on, as I said, that member experience. So thinking about, okay, if I'm a gym member and I interact with this platform, am I going to have a good experience? Is it going to be easy for me to book, manage my membership? And that really resonated, and it still does. That's sort of the number one piece of feedback I get now when I mention my company. Oh, I love your app. I book in, use it in my gym. People, that's always feedback, and that's what we always what we always went for. So, and I think that was the second one. I think then being able to get the validation from that, when I mentioned there that move into that slightly different part of fitness into the gym sector from boutique, and being able to solve those problems all over again for them. So I'd say they were sort of the three call outs on the journey so far.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's such a success story. I'm trying to figure out where to go. Your go-to-market strategy from kind of obviously evolved as well. You're kind of acquiring your first 100 customers to your first million to whatever in ARR. What was the strategy around that, and how did you, as Chief Customer Officer, how did you go about that, and what worked, what didn't work, and we'll go from there. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think I'd probably focus in on a bit more on my side, and I can touch on the sales piece that we did. So I think at a high level, like, we knew we had to create that very scalable, repeatable sales process with based on inbound, and that's something that we were able to kind of successfully scale all the way through, going for that same kind of type of customer, the same challenges. So we were able to always sort of ramp that on the sales side. It's the sort of thing that always needs to be tweaked and adjusted. Like, it's never set and forget, right? So, but that's something I always felt that we were very strong on, being able to deliver that. From a customer success perspective, I think we made the decision quite early on to invest heavily in customer success, both from an onboarding and from an actual account management perspective. While the platform is easy to use, there are a number of steps that you have to go through, like getting your app set up, getting your payments set up, getting that integrated. So our customer base in the SMB side are really busy, right? They're entrepreneurs, they're running classes, they're running gyms. So we knew we kind of had to overinvest in that in the early days to make sure that we could deliver that white glove approach. And probably at the price point, it probably was, probably at sometimes you probably would have said, oh, that's quite expensive for what the cost of the software. But we kind of knew we had to do that in the early days to kind of build that base and to get them on, because we were obviously spending a lot to acquire them. So that paid off, and now we're actually trying to move more towards a PLG type motion to allow for a lot more self-serve and setup, which I'm really excited about for the future. And then from a customer success perspective, we invested heavily in that sort of CSM team to sort of be proactive in terms of how we could reach out and help them with problems they were having in that business. We sort of set out to be sort of like a business coach almost from the early days for these guys, so we could talk to them about what we were seeing in the market, what other people were doing, and be experts in fitness rather than software. So that's something that we always wanted to focus on, that we could talk their language. And it's been really successful for us because we've hired a lot of ex-PTs, ex-fitness business people now, and they really gel well with our client base. So I think that was really, really important to us as well. And then I think when we moved to the franchise side, it's obviously very, very different in terms of the go-to-market motion there. The sales cycles, are a lot longer, and there's a lot more investment up front, and then the onboarding can take months and years in some cases, depending on the number of locations that they have. So that's kind of typical challenges in most enterprise SaaS. What we do with that, then, it's a slightly different motion in terms of there's an account manager that owns that account and stays with them then throughout the life cycle of the account, who's then in charge of sort of renewal, upsell, the usual stuff you'd expect to see there. And we're running that in more of a sort of an account-based marketing strategy, where we have our kind of list of key targets that we've highlighted, and then we're working on ways to sort of introduce ourselves to them, bring them into a process. And we're running that on a global basis, which is challenging, because you might have a master franchisor in a certain market that starts speaking to you. He can't do anything unless HQ in the States give the okay. So you're constantly putting together these maps of how to go after those accounts. But it's it's an exciting challenge, and it's an exciting time in global fitness, really, because what we've seen post COVID is just a real bounce back of people returning to fitness stronger than ever before.
Mm-hmm. As a business, Anthony, did you focus successful outside of Ireland? Was that more quite important to get to the States quick? What was the kind of the stages there to kind of scale quickly?
Yeah, I think, if you look at the US, like I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's over 50% of the global fitness market, and the same in software, right? So it's a key market for both of those. And we kind of always knew that if we were going to look at something on a global basis, we'd have to sort of go after the US, both from an SMB and from an enterprise perspective. So it was very key for us that we kind of we invested heavily in that market, and and in a team out there now that are running the sort of the go-to-market piece in the US.
But they're decisions on a different scale, though. It's a federation of states. It's easy to look at it as a single geography, but it's quite a complex thing to unpack, right?
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And just one example, like the state tax versus federal, we had to do a lot of work on our invoice and functionality and everything to be ready there and to be able to handle that. And even things like gym agreements, like 20 states have very specific laws around what you can put into a gym contract, so it is very much 50 different markets when you really get into it. But the rewards are worth the effort, obviously, in terms of what you can achieve out there, and just the scale. Coming from a country like Ireland, sometimes it's hard to when you land there, you're like, the scale of it is just, you could put Ireland in the corner of one small state and nobody would really notice,
Yeah.
right? So it's kind of, it's daunting, but it's also like why you get into these, why you
Yeah.
start as an entrepreneur and why you take on these challenges. Um, from an enterprise perspective, we really focused on trying to solve, for a lot of the global markets that a lot of our competitors didn't serve for. So aside from Stripe, we have 3 or 4 different payment integrations, which allows us to offer a full suite of products across Asia and the Middle East. So that's been a real strength of ours. So if you're a US gym and you want to scale internationally, we can service your international business and your domestic business, as they would call it. So that's been a real strength of Glowfox.
Yeah, that's good.
You've mentioned a couple of times there, what the biggest learnings probably over the last kind of 8 years to get to the business where you are now, just personally as an entrepreneur? You've had many iterations. So what kind of advice would you give to people that are either looking and going, I'm going to do it, or they're kind of on their journey? And what have you learned? I know there's 2 questions there. Kind of, what are your biggest learnings as well?
Yeah, I think the advice I give to anybody starting out is to really think about, is being an entrepreneur and starting, like, something that you really want to do, like, or do you just feel that you should do it? Because it can be just as rewarding, or just as enjoyable to come in to be 6 or 7 in the door in something, if and to grow it from there, than starting something from scratch and taking all of that responsibility on. So I think you kind of have to have a bit of self-awareness first on that one, and just start thinking about, well, what does this actually mean in 3, 4, 5, if it goes well, years time. And I think that's a pause for thought that I'd always say to people. But I think for me personally, some of the biggest learnings, I think, was just around growing a team, and what that actually means when you get to a certain size, and managing, to make sure that you keep that culture really strong. You continue to hire well, and you've got the right processes in place around that. And I think that's probably the piece that I gave the least thought to at the start, when we were starting out. Like, what would it actually mean? Like, we have 220 employees. Like, I didn't think about what that would actually mean at the start, and that's been a real learning curve, especially if they're dotted all over the globe, because you need to, communications have to be so clear. You've got to keep everybody engaged, feeling like they're part of the business. We're all in this together. And then, in terms of like mishires, and can really, really set you back. And it's always easy to kind of say, oh, look, let's just get the person in, get them working. But spending that extra time, even if it means someone else is doing 2 jobs for a while to get the right candidate, is always going to be way more worth it than moving fast to fill a role. So that part of it, and then getting the right people team in place as you scale, is really, really important. So that was a big learning for me, I think, from when we started. I think it's a bit of a cliche, but the other one is like, I was very impatient at the start. I never felt like we were moving fast enough. We were never, growing quickly enough. But then when I can't remember the exact term, but it's like people underestimate or overestimate what you can do in a year and underestimate what you can do in 5 years. And I think that's really, to think about, like, always sort of think that little bit longer term. Don't make decisions for the shorter term. Don't get too focused on, like, in the next year. Do always, like, look outwards on that horizon, because now when I look back and I'm like, in 6 years, what we achieved, midway through that, I was annoyed and disappointed. But then when you look back over the longer term, because things naturally start to snowball and increase in velocity as your size increases. So be patient, and don't be too hard on yourselves. It will happen, and don't try and do too much too fast, because that is how you'll ultimately fail, in my view.
And just, you mentioned, like, as you've grown through that, and culture is important. Have you, like, are you intentional about the culture and what that means to people, and or is it just a consequence of the type of people that you've brought in, do you think?
No, absolutely. Like, so culture is really, really important. Like, to us, like, we recognized very early on, when we were at about 25 or 30, that we had kind of something special, that people were really bought into the mission. People liked that, we were helping fitness entrepreneurs, and they could see the trickle down effect of, like, okay, people are getting healthier here, members are going to their gym. So
Yeah.
there's a real purpose behind what we were doing. And then when we started to add in the folks that I mentioned from the fitness background, it really started to grow into something quite special. And everybody that works in Glowfox, really, really values that, and we kind of had it like one team as one of our values. And we really focused on that as we scaled and as we went internationally to make sure that everybody kind of felt bought into that. So, the other ones that we would look for, like we had a growth mindset and determination as two of our other values. And we really look for that in people as part of the process. And I think, it's something that we wanted to kind of continue to maintain, but it also became really important to us because when you're in a market like Dublin, and we were in LA, for example, for a while, you're competing with people, with lots of big tech companies, and you can't afford to match salaries against them. So, we were always trying to do like what we could in terms of, fair salaries, but then it isn't always about money with people. People want to feel valued. They want to be part of an organization. They want to buy into the journey, and that all sort of then fed into each other. So we were able to kind of retain people and bring them along on the journey with us right up until the acquisition, this year and past that. So ultimately, that culture is still so important to us, and it's still a number one focus on. We bring it into everything we do, like our OKRs, our hiring, our team meetings, all that sort of stuff, and it sort of permeates throughout the organization.
Yeah, amazing.
You can answer this or not. Was it always an exit by acquisition? Was that kind of early doors? You thought that in your head, or which way were you thinking about kind of, or did that just come about because of the growth of the business?
Yeah, I'll be really honest here. Like, we didn't really have a set end game. We weren't going towards, oh, let's get acquired or let's go public. We were sort of just focused on, the growth targets that we'd set and the objectives that we wanted to achieve in the industry itself. And I think the acquisition came about then as a result of that, because ABC Fitness that acquired us this year, obviously saw the type of business that we were. We were very, very aligned in terms of our cultures. They're a fitness only platform as well. They don't do any other verticals. So, when the conversation started, the strategic benefit to both organizations of the acquisition is really what kind of made it stand out as like, okay, we can definitely do a lot more here together than separate. And I think that's what made the decision a kind of an easy one for us to make.
Yeah, I think we'll leave it at that, Anthony. And a massive congratulations on the super success of the business.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's brilliant. You're the fourth Irish company to speak with today, and with all the downturn and negative news in from big tech and stuff like that, it's amazing to hear. And the success of this business is massive congratulations.
Yeah, likewise. Well done.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed the chat, and we'll see you again soon.
David here. Thanks again, folks, for joining us. There you have it. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to whatever platform you're engaging with the content on. You can also find us on LinkedIn. Also check out our meetup page, because we are getting back to in-person events. So we look forward to seeing you in person at one of them, or certainly bringing more content and telling some more stories from the tech scene in Dublin. Thank you.